Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. In today's video, we're going to recap the extended race weekend at Michigan, including several drivers revisiting last weekend's race at Richmond during media availabilities and talking about what happened on that final lap between Austin Dillon, Joey Logano, and Denny Hamlin. Just a hint, Ty Gibbs had some interesting comments on the situation and also got surprisingly honest in his thoughts about the number 3 car. I also have an item from the Xfinity Series race and why it doesn't bode well for Hailie Deegan. And finally, we'll discuss the rain-delayed Cup race, which was won by Tyler Reddick and included a scary crash with Corey LaJoie. However, before we get to that, I want to announce our first Christmas in August winner, courtesy of today's sponsor, Pristine Marketplace, and it is Nick Hildebridle 1612. He is the winner of a Kyle Larson autographed helmet. And you know why? All he did was he went over to Pristine Marketplace to one of the best sites for NASCAR memorabilia and commented that he wanted the Kyle Larson helmet. That's it. And he was this week's random winner. Seriously, if you haven't already, I recommend you head over to their site and take a look around. They have a ton of NASCAR stuff, including autographed diecast, helmets, and a variety of cool art of your favorite driver. But that's not all. They also have signed items from every sport: NFL, MLB, and NBA, and this includes both current stars and past legends. While Nick is our first Christmas in August winner, everyone gets to be a winner this month at Pristine with their special discount of $10 off your first purchase. Use promo code BB10. There's a link in the description. Please go show them some love for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. Now, on to our first story for the day, and it came on Saturday when drivers met with the media. Unsurprisingly, reporters asked their thoughts on what happened the week before at Richmond on that last lap between Austin Dillon, Joey Logano, and Denny Hamlin, and NASCAR's decision to penalize the number 3 driver and allow the win but take away all the things that came with it. First up is Ty Gibbs. Bob Pockrass asked the JGR driver before NASCAR's decision was made, did he think what Dillon did was something that he would do?
I think I've learned from some of my mistakes in the past, and I would say no, but definitely question where they had got all that speed from as well, right? I mean, they haven't been running good at all, and all of a sudden they are super fast. So definitely curious on that.
I know. He wrecked former teammate Brandon Jones on the final lap of the Xfinity Series Martinsville race in 2022. I wrote about it yesterday on heavy.com. Go check it out. But he hasn't done anything like that in Cup. Now, to be fair, he's not been in a position because he hasn't been up front in contention for wins at the end of races. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and hope that he's matured, and if presented with that situation similar to Dillon in the future, he will stay true to his word. Speaking of his word, I honestly think the most interesting part of his comment was what he said at the end about his curiosity and questioning where the RCR car got all of that speed. I know since last Sunday, I've been wondering the same thing, and no one really talked about it because everyone was so focused on that last lap and the penalty. But here are the facts. Through the first 22 races prior to Richmond, Dillon had managed to wheel his car to just a pair of top 10 finishes, an 8th at Texas and a 6th at Gateway. Conversely, he'd recorded a dozen finishes of 25th or worse, including 3 DNFs, which surprisingly is an improvement over 2023 when he had 7 at this same point in the season. So it does seem a little surprising that he could suddenly be the dominant car after the season he's had, but hey, his car passed post-race inspection. But Gibbs's comments weren't the only ones that got my attention. The other came from Kyle Busch. Take a listen.
Certainly there's the right way to win races and there's the wrong way to win races. There's a lot of guys that have done some desperate things to get wins, even when they're not desperate, The one that had it happen to him is probably the one that's done it the most, that doesn't need to do it. I guess his comments, he can be calling himself that. Somebody threw up a highlight of him from the K&N race at Irwindale years ago. I forgot all about that one. Holy mackerel. Doing shit like that should never get you to the top level, but it did. So anyways, yeah, be mindful of what you do, I guess. It's always going to come back on you. YouTube is there for not all positives.
Busch saying Logano was calling himself a chicken bleep based on his past action was not surprising at all. However, his reference to the Irwindale race was. Here's why. I admittedly didn't remember the race he was talking about, so I went and looked it up. Take a look.
He's really going to have to send it in, and he does. On the bottom. Sweeps up. Hit Seller. Slam in the wall. Here comes Kovaluk. Logano makes it first to the flag.
So Logano did the same thing as Dillon and wrecked a guy to win the race. Except he didn't.
All right, here's the word. Joey Logano has been penalized for rough riding. Matt Kovaluk has won the Toyota All-Star Showdown for the second time.
When I saw that the first time, all I could do was shake my head. This was 15 years ago, and this NASCAR sanctioned event penalized Logano and took away his win immediately. There was no 3-day wait. So we know NASCAR is capable of making quick, on-the-spot decisions. Now let's hope they've learned from what happened at Richmond and implement that process moving forward. Fingers crossed. Moving on to Saturday's Xfinity Series race, but before we do, there was some Xfinity news before the race when the Haas factory team announced its 2 drivers in 2025 would be Sam Mayer and Sheldon Creed. That squelched the rumors that Hailie Deegan might be in one of the cars next year. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only negative news for Deegan fans on Saturday. Later in the day, during the race, Lawless Allen drove Deegan's number 15 car. Yeah, the same Lawless Allen who had multiple beefs with Deegan in their truck days. Anyone who's paid attention knows he's had a penchant for wrecking women. Just last month, Tony Breidinger talked to me about her run-in with Allen in the ARCA race, so I was naturally skeptical of what he could do in his Xfinity Series debut. He finished 35th, but that definitely doesn't tell the whole story. He was actually pretty good, at least in that first stage. After qualifying 15th, he was running 11th when Sheldon Creed spun with 6 laps to go. On the restart, the 24-year-old made an impressive move around Riley Herbst and Jeffrey Earnhardt to finish 5th in Stage 1. Those were the first stage points for the number 15 AM racing car all year. He did get loose on the bottom in Stage 3 and wrecked, but what he did in that first stage was noteworthy. Now, let's move on to Sunday's portion of the Cup Series race and talk about driver introductions. I know what many of the drivers thought about Austin Dillon's move at Richmond. So what did the fine folks of Michigan think about it?
More booze than I thought there might be.
With the race delayed before the green flag ever fell, NBC interviewed numerous drivers. Denny Hamlin was one of them, and I'm not joking when I admit I did a double take looking at him. Take a look for yourself, and it appears that his right eye is swollen like a small black eye. I went online to see if I was crazy and the only one that noticed it. I was not. And someone even theorized that it could have been the result of his impact at Richmond, which according to his crew chief Chris Gabehart was 32 Gs. Not sure if that's what caused it, but it sure appeared swollen and darker. The race started after a 2+ hour rain delay and Kyle Larson took the lead. The first thing of note was cars were topping 200 miles per hour. Late in the stage, Hamlin and Larson were racing for the lead when Bubba Wallace made a move that appeared like slingshot engaged. Shortly after making that pass, Hamlin was battling with his 2311 racing car and went for a spin. On the pit stops, Ryan Blaney stayed out and won the first stage. And then the second round of rains came at the stage break. During the red flag, NBC caught up with multiple drivers. The funniest thing came when Parker Kligerman had a chat with Bubba Wallace and talked about that move he made.
The cleaner the air got, a little bit freer we got, and then those guys were having a measuring contest down the front stretch. They were so slow, I told you I looked to see if there was a caution out.
I'm not sure if you remember, but it was Kyle Larson who said something very similar earlier this season. Stage 2 resumed on Monday morning, and Kyle Busch jumped out to the early lead on the restart. Martin Truex Jr. made the pass, and it made me think, just another Martin Monday? While the stormy weather was gone, the wind was blowing, and the cars were reaching even higher speeds. Take a look at Chase Elliott's number. I'm fairly confident in saying that's the fastest we've seen so far with the Gen 7 car in competition. After green flag pit cycles, Kyle Larson took the lead and battled with Truex. Then, in a bizarre sequence, Joey Logano, AJ Allmendinger, and Todd Gilliland all suffered flats around the same time that brought out the caution with 12 laps to go. Then, on pit road, Logano got a speeding penalty. Listen to this exchange between the number 22 driver and his team.
What happened there? Did it pop or did it come off? It didn't come off. Okay. Okay, when he said it came off, it confused me. Okay, what are we down here, 2 or 1?
Should just be 1. We sped entering pit road.
Yeah, I couldn't stop. What does that mean?
Started the tail, not eligible for a wave round.
On the subsequent restart, and just a week or so after saying he was a better driver than Max Verstappen, Larson got loose on his own and collected a bunch of good cars, including playoff bubble drivers Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace, as well as Christopher Bell and Logano. Under caution, Kyle Busch won his first stage of the year. The start of the final stage got off to a terrifying start where Corey LaJoie barely got sideways but quickly got airborne, flipped onto his lid, and slid down the backstretch. Here's what Bubba Wallace and his team said about it over the radio.
Spin down the back, I'll flip down the back on the apron. Yellow's out, he's sliding across on his roof. Gonna flip over once he gets to the grass probably.
Holy shit.
Now take a listen to Chase Elliott's radio.
They didn't even see it up here, Mark.
Yeah, that was fucking scary.
And now listen to what Jeff Burton had to say about it on the NBC broadcast.
Car turned sideways and just flipped in the air. That is, quite honestly, that's just not acceptable. There's no way that a car, when it turns like that, should get up in the air that easily. There has been millions of dollars and hours of time spent to prevent that from happening.
Burton is right. That is unacceptable. How bizarre was it? Here's LaJoie's team radio, and they were puzzled as much as anyone.
Dude, maybe he shaded a little bit, but I couldn't tell. It was almost like a freaking wind gust. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I don't know. I mean, I just watched the replay. I couldn't tell from that angle, but I think the pin hung a left. Yeah, looking at S&P, he definitely moved over a little bit, but I don't think it was that bad. Yeah, still not sure, Stefan. He's definitely shaded left a little bit, but it wasn't. I'm surprised it did that. Yeah, that was weird.
All I have to say is after watching Ryan Preece last year at Daytona and what happened to LaJoie today, there's not a reason for any tracks to have grass anymore. Honestly, I got nervous yesterday when Hamlin got loose and went into the grass. Thankfully, nothing happened. I guess after last week's impact, the racing gods were on his side. As for LaJoie, he's never been on his roof in his entire career until earlier this year at Atlanta and now at Michigan. I guess with that little factoid, we should have known who was going to win. Yes, Tyler Reddick won the last time it happened to LaJoie. In the final 50 laps, Kyle Busch, who ran inside the top 10 all day, took 2 tires during his green flag pit stop, came out in front, and had a legitimate shot at contending for the win. But Tyler Reddick, which appeared to be the best car, took the lead and was destined for victory. However, with 7 laps to go, Martin Truex Jr. got into the wall and brought out a questionable caution. Reddick was understandably unhappy with the quick yellow. In the first overtime restart, Alex Bowman got loose, hit the wall, which caused Ross Chastain to react. The Trackhouse racing car started fishtailing, and his car actually started to lift a bit, but thankfully stayed grounded. In the second overtime, the question was, could Byron, who was reportedly low on fuel, keep up with Reddick? He could not, thanks in large part to Ty Gibbs giving the number 45 a huge shove on the restart that propelled him out front, where he held on for the victory. Michael Jordan, who was at the racetrack yesterday, didn't stick around and missed his second trip to victory lane with Reddick this year. All right, guys, that's a wrap on this episode. We discussed a lot, and I want to hear what you thought about it. First, let's talk about what Ty Gibbs had to say about Austin Dillon. Did you question the pace in the number 3 car last week? And what about Kyle Busch calling out Joey Logano for a race where NASCAR officials actually penalized Logano on the spot? Do you remember that race? And what did you think about the 2-day Cup race? Were you shocked to see LaJoie get airborne and go for a ride on his roof? And finally, we're heading into the final 2 races of the regular season, and it's a tight battle between Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, and Bubba Wallace. Who do you think makes it in? Again, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Pristine Marketplace. Go check out their awesome website and save $10 off your first purchase. There's a link in the description. And congrats to Nick Hildebridal 1612 for winning the Kyle Larson autographed helmet. Thanks as always for supporting the channel, and have a great rest of your day.